Okay, so from what you guys just saw, that was an article on the Huffington Post. It's a headline. I don't want to get into too much detail responding to the article. The goal behind this video is just to put out a more generic video on gun suicides, specifically because I think that in and of itself should be talked about. Well, this type of gun death is not rarely mentioned. In fact, it's lumped in with your whole 33,000 people die a year due to gun violence deal. You guys are busy lumping suicides in with all the death by firearm or death by gunshot wound stats to make it seem like firearms are the problem. You're trying to make it seem like we have a, quote, epidemic of gun violence, when the fact of the matter is we don't. Well, at least not in places where people like you have been told no. And it's usually somebody on my side mentioning that of those 30,000 or 33,000 or so gun deaths a year, the vast majority are suicides. It's somebody on my side usually bringing this up, saying, hey, you guys are conflating 3 different types of deaths. Right? It's not some NRA conspiracy to be ineffective. It's you guys simply are lumping suicides in with everything else. Now, as for gun control being the solution to gun suicides, no. It simply is not going to work. It's not going to prevent any suicides. The only thing that gun control will do in the way of gun suicides is simply reduce the number of gun suicides, but it won't reduce the overall number. You got to think. Firearm is a tool. It's an inanimate object. Banning guns simply means that, or highly controlling guns, either way you want to put it, simply means that somebody who's willing to commit suicide will choose a different method. Gun control advos, when Canada tightened down their gun laws, again, I've said this before, and other people have said this before, they've tightened, when they tightened down their gun laws, their suicide by firearm numbers reduced, but their overall suicide rate did not change, which simply mean people were changing the methods. But all you could hear the gun controller saying there was, well, you see, we reduced gun suicides with gun control. Now, to me, all that says is, oh, great, you know. So, you know, you're okay with them committing suicide as long as it wasn't with a tool you don't like. Yeah. Thanks for letting me know that you're simply exploiting their death to get more restrictions put on something that you don't like. You're exploiting their death for an agenda. That's just plain and simple. Suicide is a much more complex issue than simply taking away a tool. Japan, South Korea both have stringent gun laws. Their suicide rate, their overall suicide rate, dwarfs our overall suicide rate. So obviously there isn't a real correlation with firearm controls and stopping suicides. Now, again, as I've said, suicide is a complex issue, and if you have a suicidal friend, you need to get them professional help. You know, first things first, you don't leave them alone. Second thing is, you know, yes, you might take their firearm from them, but you're going to take everything else from them too, because just about anything and everything else can be taken, can be used as a weapon too. I know back in the Army, you know, you ever got put on suicide watch, the person who was suicidal They had everything taken off of them, their belt, their bootlaces, you know, everything. So the idea that simply having tighter gun laws is somehow going to stop people from committing suicide is a farce. It's a fantasy. But people such as the author of this article and other gun controllers are more than happy to push this false narrative, this fantasy, you know, because they believe it's going to get them their way. And actually, yes, if a lot of people believe this false narrative, in the end, it will get them their way. Will overall suicide rates change when they get their way? No. But that doesn't matter to them. All what matters is they get their way. On that note, a firearm is a simple tool. Again, as I said in the video, it's not going to be the reason why somebody commits suicide. People aren't going to go home, you know, after stringent gun laws are enacted and most society, the average person can no longer own a firearm, and you know, only a small fraction of people own firearms. You know what? People aren't going to go home and say, well, you know, I'm thinking about killing myself today, but you know what? I don't have a gun, so I think I'm just going to go all live. Oh, woe is me. Now I have to go living because I don't have a gun to kill myself. Now, if somebody's interested in killing themselves, they're going to find another way. The other factor that you people, you gun controllers, don't want to take into account for is that sometimes, you know, a firearm, in fact, more times than not, a firearm brings joy to people. Shoot, I know being able to purchase a firearm, you know, walk into a gun store and purchase a firearm brings me a great deal of joy. I know going out to the range and shooting a firearm brings me a great deal of joy. You know, I'll give you a personal story on me on this one. After one of my deployments to Iraq, I came home. It was a miserable homecoming. I was getting divorced, you know. And really, I mean, that wasn't the fact that I was getting divorced was making it miserable. The fact that I had a bad marriage, that whole tour, I wasted time and effort on somebody who really didn't deserve it. And they were fighting me on this divorce. They didn't want to simply sign off on the paperwork and go their separate way either. She didn't want to do that. So, already, you know, back from deployment, I'm on my mid-tour leave. And, you know, if you ever come home from a deployment to a divorce, you know what I'm talking about on that. You know, that whole, well, yeah, my life has really changed deal. It's not necessarily the happiest experience out there. You know, it's not necessarily a happy homecoming. But anyway, so on my post-tour leave, I walked into a gun store. You know, I saw the gun store. It was the first time I'd seen that gun store ever. And you know me, you know, whenever I see a gun store in the area that I haven't been into, I like to go in and check it out. I like to go in and look around to see, you know, what selection they have, what prices they have, and, you know, if it's going to be in my gun stores I will buy a gun from. You know, if it will be in the one that I will frequently visit. Well, in this gun store, I saw this H&K USP Variant 1 chambered 40 caliber Smith & Wesson. It's got the Trichon night sights on it, and it's got the auto decocker cover. to it. And by the way, in order to cock or lever, just simply decocks it. For those of you who don't know, I'm assuming some gun controllers are going to be watching this, or some people who don't know about firearms may very well watch this. But, you know, I saw it there with I mean, it was being sold there. It had a bunch of extra magazines with it. Been kind of a fan of HK. I know HKs are expensive, but they've got a certain feel to them and a certain quality to them that you just don't see with any other manufacturer. And this being a USP variant, one chambered in .40 caliber, had been one of the guns I wanted to get. So you can imagine my delight, you know, going in there like, you know what, I still have some deployment money. You know, I have deployment money, you know, here still. I bought it. It was a happy day for me. In fact, it was a happy week for me. You know, I went out and shot it, you know, and just being able to go out there and shoot it, take it apart, clean it, you know, dry fire drill with it, and all the other things with it. It just, it's an experience that made me happy. You know, for those of you who aren't into guns, think of something that you like that gives you great joy when you do it. Alright. And then there was another story I wanted to share with y'all as well. Anyway, so I had a buddy. I have a buddy. He's still a buddy. He's still active in his church. Well, anyway, his church was doing a summer camp. And one of the things that he wanted to do, you know, I guess he kind of wanted to set himself aside, you know, in the church, was he wanted to get the kids all a firearm safety and firearm familiarization course. He obviously knew who to go to. You know, so anyway, we got the land set up, and of course, you know, got the ammo all together, got the models, all, you know, all the models I wanted to take out there to give the kids a chance to shoot, you know. And by the way, these kids varied in age, anywhere from 13 to 17. So it was definitely fun. I mean, you know, the kids got to camp out there, you know. They do their lunch, dinner, stuff like that, you know. Well, you know, we'd set up, you know, they'd have their prayer meeting, you know, me and the other guy who was out there helping me out. We'd set up the range, set up the targets, set up the classes, you know, of course after prayer, you know, we'd come down and give our classes on, you know, the models we're going over, you know. The kids had a blast. I mean, some of the kids brought out, one of the kids brought out a watermelon to shoot, you know, and they wanted to get that on video for the church, you know. Another kid, you know, I mean, they all brought out their cameras, you know. Another kid brought out their target, you know. They had a blast. I mean, you know, they were having a good time. I was having a great time, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, shoot, I think if I was ever feeling depressed or feeling suicidal and I went out there and did that, you know, you know, while I was feeling depressed and suicidal, I think I would have to reconsider that. I mean, because that day, I mean, it was a great day. And, you know, what was even more fun, personally, you know, to me, is, you know, hearing some of the kids talk about, yeah, when I become 21, I'm getting myself a 5.7 too. So I kind of thought, yeah, I'm definitely happy. I at least influenced them to get the most to want to get the most controversial pistol in the U.S. All right. So, and I bring up these stories for a reason. Obviously, the gun controllers want to completely disregard the joy firearm ownership, shooting sports, and everything in that nature, gun collecting can entail. They want to take away another source of happiness. And you see, one of the best tools to prevent somebody from being suicidal is them being happy. Every suicide prevention course I've taken, when they're talking about somebody who's suicidal, it's always somebody who's going through a rough patch in their life. Somebody who's not happy. So I think maybe, people being happy would contribute to them not committing suicide. I know, Captain Obvious or Major Obvious. Alright, folks, you guys take her easy out there.